But we will start off with quick introductions. We're going to set the stage for this panel. The key focus is transportation. You look at Florida at the moment, and we have, I think, three factors that significantly impact the infrastructure and transportation market. You look at population growth, climate adaptation, and economic growth. And those three factors, kind of post-COVID, have exponentially increased the need to make our existing infrastructure resilient, and the need for new infrastructure. As you're all aware, I think trying to get to this event, you take many modes of transportation, and it's quite difficult, and the existing infrastructure is extremely strained. We have a number of ongoing major projects in Florida that are currently under construction, and all of these individuals here today have major capital improvement programs and 25-year master plans that they plan on embarking on. So it's going to be an interesting dance to get all those projects funded and moving forward. So we'll start off with introductions, starting with Alexis and going down.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Alexis Miller. I go by Lexi. I work for the City of Cape Canaveral in our Community and Economic Development Department and Resilience Division. I'm the Resilience Engineering Services Manager and Transportation Development Coordinator, so if you can memorize that and recite it back to me, I have a prize. It's a crisp high five. I'm excited to be here. We're a small built-out community on a barrier island up in Brevard County in Central Florida, so it's exciting to kind of learn what else is going on down here in Florida.
All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning, children. I was told we have to be disruptors. We are the first session of the day. We're going to set the tempo for today, so we will be engaging. All right, so we're ready to rock and roll. Good morning. My name is Maurice Jenkins. I am the Chief Innovation Officer responsible for CX as well as strategy for Miami International Airport. So those of you who flew in, if those that did not take public transportation, welcome to my airport. We're faced with a good amount of challenges, and I'm soliciting all of your input of how we're going to go from where we sit today to make that better as we move forward and as we progress. With that, a significant amount of challenges. So we have a large capital program we're about to embark upon, but we're looking at creating a innovation strategy around how do we improve business processes within our airport, as well as integrating technology and other strategic initiatives. So it's truly a pleasure to be here.
All right, good morning. I'm Ulysses Cleckley, the Director of the Department of Transportation and Public Works for Miami-Dade County. Now, I know, Maurice, everybody took public transportation to get here, so I know we don't even have to ask that question.
Exactly.
All right, very good. So DTPW is what we're called here in Miami-Dade County. Just to give you a landscape of the department, we handle Metrobus, Metromover, Metrorail, our paratransit services, as well as our new on-demand service called Metro Connect, 9,000 lane miles of roadways, 168 miles of canals, 201 bridges, 3,000 traffic signals, about 4,000 miles of sidewalks, and all of this makes us busy, to include also transit-oriented community development as we are looking to build out our transit system and have a better nexus between transit and housing. So I'm sure we'll get into that conversation later. But very happy to be here and looking forward to it.
Good morning. My name is Benjamin Restrepo. I'm Senior Project Manager with the City of Fort Lauderdale. My main duty at the City of Fort Lauderdale is reviewing traffic and parking studies that come into the city through private development. And my main focus is on synchronizing private infrastructure with public infrastructure and making the City of Fort Lauderdale a more multimodal city. I just want to give a shout out to public transportation. I came from Fort Lauderdale, got on the Tri-Rail train, got on the Tri-Rail connector at the Hialeah station, and then I got on the Metromover down here. So whoever likes public transportation, it's good here in Broward County and Dade County.
Very good. Well, starting off, I think, again, obviously the number one priority is how are we going to pay for all this infrastructure. So funding has been at the top of the list of a lot of these individuals' priorities. And I think, Ulysses, you're well kind of into that process, right? You have the South Corridor, which is currently under construction. And there was some innovating financing financing and funding mechanisms to be able to get that project started, and now about to embark on hopefully a number of other smart corridor developments. So can you give us some insight into some of the challenges and what solutions have been developed in order to fund these projects? I mean, FTA is obviously critical. I know you've been meeting with FTA recently, so it'd be interesting to understand from that perspective what you guys are doing.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate that. And you mentioned the South. You guys hear me? Yeah. Make sure. You mentioned the South Dade BRT project. So just to give a quick update on that. Hopefully, those of you who have traveled down south toward Homestead or Florida City, you've seen these large structures that we're building. Essentially, we're building 14 iconic BRT stations that will service the South Dade community. We will have a 20-mile all-electric bus-operated BRT system, one of the longest in the world. It will be gold standard. We are planning to be substantially complete the summer of this year, and hopefully a revenue service by the first quarter of 2025. I believe we do have some members from DTPW. Can you guys raise your hand? So these are the folks that make things happen and get things done. I know later today, Alex Barrios, the project manager, is actually going to be presenting on the project. So make sure to spend time to listen to his presentation. But that project is roughly around $300 million. It's split between the local share from the county, the Florida Department of Transportation, as well as FTA. We are looking at moving forward with the Northeast Corridor. That's the next corridor up. It's a commuter rail line that will connect downtown Miami to Aventura. We've already secured $103 million from the state. We've identified a local share for the county, and we're in the last stages of asking the federal government to give us roughly around $250 to $300 million to deliver that project. As we move forward, funding will continue to be a challenge and something that this community will need to understand and address. Everybody gets excited about all of the great, wonderful new capital projects, but they forget that what you build, you have to operate and you have to maintain. And I think that's going to be the biggest drag on a lot of our future funding resources moving forward. So we are working with, I would say, a multiplicity of stakeholders to address this accordingly, and we're going to embark on a variety of different financing and funding tools to be able to actually fund and deliver all of the projects in the SMART program. As context, we have a $10 billion that is generated or will be generated over the next 40 years within our surtax, or half penny. But if we're going to continue to move towards really having a comprehensive transportation system, we do need to look at additional revenue sources to be able to deliver those 6 corridors and maintain our current services that we have today.
Very good, appreciate that. And I think that's a good transition. Obviously, Lexi's about to embark on her 25-year master plan at Cape Canaveral, but if you could provide some insight into that and obviously what you're doing in terms of preparing for those funding challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. So our Presidential Streets Master Plan is just kind of a cool toolkit and a guiding document for a highly residential area in our city. We inherited that kind of mid-century urban design that a lot of Central Florida got due to the space race and just putting up houses, putting down roads. We don't really care about stormwater, bike ped. It just is kind of this beast of a problem to deal with. So we have this 25-year master plan to implement connectivity for bike ped in our area, to implement resilient stormwater infrastructure. We have a lot of issues with nuisance flooding in our city, even though we're very small. And we have to protect our Banana River Lagoon system, which all of our outfalls pour into. So what we're doing currently is we are actually embarking this first year. We're going to start implementing it this next fiscal year, and we're going to actually self-fund. We're going to look for grants, obviously, but kind of take it as a lesson learned between our stormwater fund, our general fund, and any grants that we can get, and then take that as a proof of concept definitively, turn it around for some of those federal connectivity funds, some of those stormwater DEP funds, so that we can stack and leverage some of those opportunities, whether it's cost share, grants, revolving loans, and that's kind of where we're focusing on it. Additionally, we actually were just awarded, and we're in the midst of it, a National Science Foundation grant for $1 million to implement low-impact development in the neighborhood and alleviate some flooding in one of the worst areas. And so we're going to be able to use that to, again, add that proof of concept, add some more environmental impacts to the area so that we can not only alleviate the stormwater issues that we have, but also do some improvements in the area. It's highly residential. We're a pretty small community, but we have a lot of people that don't have access to personal vehicles in their household. So that level of connectivity between Cocoa Beach, our neighbors to the north, Port Canaveral. I don't know if I know that's kind of public enemy number one down here with Port Miami. We keep seeing this development and this tourism attention to our area, and so we have to be able to kind of accommodate that, especially when it comes to our residents and our visitors.
Appreciate that, Lexi. Benjamin, you want to just touch briefly on obviously some of the challenges you've faced from an intermodal perspective? I mean, you have a number of different agencies you have to coordinate, whether it's Broward MPO, DOT, there's I think 21 cities in Broward County, so it'd be interesting to get your insight on that.
Yeah, so a common theme you'll probably hear this morning is funding challenges. The city of Fort Lauderdale has a lot of great plans that we're trying to implement in our city to make it more multimodal. And one of the biggest plans is the Lauder Trail system. So Lauder Trail system is going to be a bike and pedestrian pathway that goes throughout the entire city of Fort Lauderdale. This trail system was directed by our commission. And one of my roles, like I said earlier, was reviewing the traffic studies and parking studies that developments come into the city. So the Transportation Mobility Department, they're the ones that are going to fund the project in the areas where there isn't any development. So our downtown of Fort Lauderdale is seeing the most of the development in our city, and my job is to make sure that those developers are implementing the Lauder Trail that's adjacent to their properties. So that's one way we have a cost savings. Another thing that we do for additional funding is that we work very closely with the Broward MPO and Broward County and also FDOT. But one project in particular, which was a proof of concept project, was on Sunrise Boulevard, it was on Northeast 15th Avenue, just north of Sunrise Boulevard. It was a quarter-mile project where we eliminated a lane in each direction and then repurposed that lane for a bicycle, a buffered bike lane. But what's really cool about this is that we were able to get, along with the Broward MPO, we were able to reach out to the communities. And the communities, we got over 200 volunteers over 4 days, and then we were out there in the street, and we were painting the bicycle lanes onto the street. So it was a low-cost project, just to show proof of concept, and the results were wonderful. We ended up getting a reduction in vehicles traveled on Northeast 15th Avenue by 12%. So it's basically eliminating the cut-through traffic that was on Northeast 15th Avenue. And speeds dropped by 25%. So for saving lives and making it easier to cross the street, this was a huge gain in our city of Fort Lauderdale. So with this proof of concept, there were some things that we did incorrectly. For example, we eliminated the right turn lane at the intersection of 15th Avenue and Northeast 13th Street. There was a lot of queuing because of that. So because it was just paint on the ground, we were able to rectify that and add the right turn lane back. But instead of the bike lane being buffered, now we have just a 5-foot bike lane. So because we have such successful results with this, we're now going to be able to apply for grants with the Broward MPO C-SLIP program, and then we're going to get the hard infrastructure in there by moving curbs, widen the sidewalk, get proper protection for the bike lanes instead of just paint.
Very good, appreciate it. Transition to Maurice, so. Very good, thank you very much. So again, you look at Miami International Airport being the largest economic growth engine for the county. You basically are in charge of a small city with lots of problems, but get to embark on a $7+ billion capital improvement program to what I think to be able to make probably a world-class airport. From a digital transformation perspective, what are your thoughts in terms of being able to implement digital transformation to effectively and efficiently deliver, operate, maintain this infrastructure for the next 30 years?
Great question. And again, in looking at it from this perspective, the challenge that we face is we are constantly growing. There's an increased level of demand and engagement, right, coming into Miami-Dade County. And I'll preface it from this perspective. Like when my family from England comes to visit, they like public transportation. So when they land, they want to get off the plane. They want to, because that's when I go to Europe to go home, it's I go from Heathrow, I jump on the Heathrow Express, I take the tube, and I can get through London. So they want to have the ability to understand the city, and how best do you understand your city if you're not using public transportation? So for me, I'm looking at it how do I be able to support, manage, and maintain for a capacity of an influx of individuals. So if you go from COVID, I went from 5,000 passengers a day when we were dealing with COVID, and I think we all were hit, to the point where our highest peak time going into 2023, going into 2024, we had over 194,000 people come through my airport in one day. So if you look at the impact and the strain it puts on an airport, the challenges come along with that. How do we apply technology to meet some of that demand so you can understand what that demand and that footprint looks like? So the challenges that now that we're dealing with is take that capital program, an additional $1.4+ billion of working on renovations for maintenance. And as the director mentioned earlier, you can build all of this great stuff, but if you're not planning for O&M, you're delaying the inevitable that you're going to face a lot of significant challenges with. So two things we're putting in place, or three things. So one, looking at more project management tools as we're getting ready to work on new construction, new development. So this whole piece in process, and I believe that should be going out to bid pretty soon. So that's great. But at the same token, we're looking at some BIM and doing some BIM modeling in regards to just new construction development on top of that. Thirdly, trying to create this new infrastructure of creating a digital twin of the airport to better manage the airport a little bit more. So all of these things are going to start to come into play, but how well do you work towards effectuating change? So I'm looking at, we're going to be one of the first airports to actually fully centralize my airport. So that's going to go on all of our conveyances. There's a dashboard that we're going to have available now that you can see what escalators are up or what's down, so we can be more reactive. We can be more proactive rather than being reactive, so therefore eliminate some of that level of media engagement, so to speak, right? So there's challenges. It's kind of hard to do work and maintenance in a facility that's running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So for those of you that just to get a better understanding, my maintenance window in my airport is from 1 a.m. to 4. That's it. So you're moving 190,000 people a day through your airport, plus or minus. You only have a 3-hour time period to go ahead and work on anything. How well can you work on effectuating that change? So I need to be as proactive as I possibly can. So essentials in our conveyances, elevators, looking at some new technology, working with some startups, want to be able to engage with our community as a whole to see what's sitting out there. That's one. Two, go beyond just essentials. I'm looking at my loading bridges. I'm looking at water temperature. I'm looking at temperature AC in the airport and manage that footprint. I'm looking at how we do also environmental sensors. I'm tying all of that in because I think we're one more cough away of COVID 3.0. Now what? So I'm looking at everything else holistically that we can ensure this economic engine that's flourishing, that we're thriving to go ahead and enhance and develop, can meet that level of demand. Our capacity is supposed to get to 76 million, I think, in the next 7-10 years. Right? So that's a lot of build out. That's a lot of construction. That's a lot of development. So from a digital transformation perspective, how best can we leverage drones? How best can we leverage virtual reality? And I'm looking at some augmented reality type items or parallel reality. I'm talking to Customs and Border Protection now, how we can enhance the customer experience with some of that. And other technology initiatives that are actually coming up through the pipeline. So when you look at airports like DFW leveraging drones to be able to do inspections and other items and their limitations due to the FAA, how do we work around that? Looking at what Munich Airport is doing in regards to virtual reality and being able to manage that infrastructure using Google Glass, et cetera. And also even Atlanta using AI. And we're talking a lot about AI and how does AI build into this marketplace. And while AI is great, it's only as good as the data that you use because there's a lot of bias that comes along with that. So it could be a benefit to you, but it could also be of detriment to you. So I have to caution all of that temperament that comes along with that. So it's not just simple plug and play. It's let's plug, let's analyze and see how well it plays in this environment and everything else that it touches downstream within this ecosystem of ours. So the vision of leveraging that technology is being able to come from my airport, log into or engage with some level of technology. And how do I use public transportation now to get around Miami-Dade County or get to Broward or get to Cape Canaveral, back and forth, and actually have a holistic ecosystem, leveraging innovation and tech throughout the state if possible. Now you get the full breadth of what the state of Florida has to offer rather than just what Miami-Dade or Broward or Cape Canaveral has to offer. So it's a large lift, heavy lift for me in what I'm working on. I'm just trying to engage with our community as a whole But these small incremental pieces of technology that we're evaluating, that we're ingesting into this ecosystem today, gives us a better viewpoint and vision as to where we want to take our airport and what the future of the airport looks like. And there's a lot to look forward to. We're actually going through this transformational process, and you will see this change. But I'm bringing this challenge to you rather than you bringing this challenge to me.
Appreciate that. And again, obviously being such a critical piece of infrastructure, and obviously you mentioned not being able to impact operations, the commission just recently approved a contract with FP&L from a resiliency perspective to ensure that operations are not impacted. Are you in a place to be able to touch a little bit on what's happening there in terms of backup power generation in order to support the ongoing operations of the facility?
Not necessarily in regards to what FPL is doing.
Yeah.
They do have a presence on the airport, and we're working with them. My concern of what we're trying to do to ensure that we can meet the requirements and the capacity perspective is where we're going on the electrification aspect.
Oh, yes.
More EV charging. All right, so as a matter of fact, we're talking to EXP, as a matter of fact, in regards to where does EV charging sit within the footprint for our county vehicles? But at the same token, how do we meet the demand of the traveling public, and what does EV numbers look like in the state of Florida? I think it's over, 100,000 electric vehicles and growing. But what does that footprint look like? Because the concern is, do we have ample space? Looking at the weight of electric vehicles, what does that do on the impact of the infrastructure and the buildings themselves, on our parking garages? So it's great to charge a vehicle, but if you're weighing down my building over a period of time and I have a building collapse issue, then you didn't buy me anything. It's great I can charge a vehicle, but I just go ahead and cause $1 million worth of damage somewhere, right? So how do I put all of that together to be able to put in electric vehicles? We're talking to the airlines, they want to use electric tugs, so now there's a billing model. All right. I am talking to a company today out of California that actually it's a robotic solution. So it actually brings the EV charger to the vehicle, charges the vehicle and go back, because now you're taking up a parking space. So I'm looking at the business rules that come around this. Charging is one aspect, electrification, ensuring I have capacity is one aspect, but there are other touch points that come along with this. Where does all of that sit? And I think it comes collectively, the more I have the opportunity to engage with people like you in the audiences, what are the touch points that we're missing, and holistically, what does the whole footprint look like rather than just one aspect?
Very good. Yeah, so are you looking at EV charging and fleet electrification from your perspective? Obviously, it's a major component of Miami-Dade County at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have an edict to try to electrify, or especially our bus fleet, as much as we can. We have currently approximately 70 Proterra buses that are part of our fleet, and then we're adding an additional 100 New Flyer buses, and these are all electric, battery-operated vehicles that will be replacing our diesel-operated fleet. So really, in the next 2 years, all of our fleets will be alternative fuel powered, and whether it be CNG or electric battery-powered buses in our fleet. So that's something that's important, not only from an environmental perspective, but also from an equity perspective, because a lot of our routes are going through neighborhoods that traditionally are being overly exposed to environmental harm. And so it's something that we're committed to, the administration is committed to as we move forward. I do want to go back to one thing that Maurice was talking about with respect to leveraging technology to manage projects and assets. I think this is the one thing that we are leaning into much more in our department. We will be establishing an asset management program with supporting software to really identify what are our deferred maintenance needs and the conditions of our assets. It's kind of surprising. We always focus on the transit piece, but we also, as I mentioned earlier, have roadways, sidewalks, and bridges. And we have a handful of bridges that are in a condition that we need to figure out what to do with moving forward, that are high ticket items for replacement or repair long term. But we also need to better understand the condition of our pavement or of our sidewalks and other infrastructure pieces, so we can bundle together a true maintenance program that we can program for, and we can identify the proper funding to sustain this infrastructure here within the county. So all that is a part of making sure we have the tools available to allow us to manage those assets much better.
Very good. And Director, again, as we talked about the main factors that are affecting kind of Florida in general from a population growth perspective and an economic growth perspective, Miami-Dade County has probably suffered from an affordability perspective as it relates to housing. So how are you looking to provide solutions in terms of developing affordable housing? We talk about transit-oriented development or transit-oriented communities that we're looking at now. What's your focus on there, and how do you think that supports in terms of providing affordable housing to allow people to work and live here in South Florida?
Yeah, transportation and housing are connected, right? So figuring out a way to leverage, especially the space that we own as a county, and developing it to build the highest and best use around a metro rail system, even our metro mover system, has got to be the future of sustaining people to continue to move here to South Florida. And so for every single one of our metro rail stations, we have built TOCs, that's what we call them now, transit-oriented communities, basically mixed-use development that combines residential and commercial space together in proximity to a metro rail station. We're also building in affordable units and workforce housing within this development. It's already a 12.5% requirement that we try to hold the developers to for affordability purposes. But we've identified and have great partnerships with a lot of new developers that have come in that have built up towards 100% affordable housing. We have projects at a Brownsville station. We have a project in Coconut Grove Metro Rail Station. We have a very exciting project that just opened up, and we had an opening ceremony about 3 months ago at Douglas Road, which is the core, the link at Douglas facility and development where there's 1,400 units and 25,000 square foot of commercial retail space. And I would say across our entire system, we built over 6,000 affordable units across in proximity to our metro rail system, and that number is almost as much as our public housing and community development department is building in terms of affordable housing units. So as we move forward, we're going to look at ways to build out as much as we can with our existing right-of-way or property that we currently own. But then also, as we continue to work as a county through our rapid transit zone policy, where we're encouraging increased density and increased floor area ratio to be built to ensure that we're, again, building as many units as possible in proximity to transit so we can reduce the overall housing and transportation costs and have South Florida continue to be a place that can have everybody of all socioeconomic backgrounds to be able to afford to live here.
Very good, appreciate that. Benjamin, can you just touch on briefly in terms of some of the first mile, last mile solutions that have been developed in Fort Lauderdale? You look at, obviously, connectivity is important, and that first mile, last mile is the most important in terms of providing access to public transit.
Yeah, before I do that, just to touch on what Ulysses said a little bit, I think the developer. Hello? Okay. Yeah, I think the developers love TODs more than actual cities or counties because, as everyone knows, constructing parking garage is pretty expensive. So in a TOD, your parking requirements drastically drop or sometimes are 100% exempted. So here at the city of Fort Lauderdale, we also do love TODs because less parking, that means more people are walking, biking, or using the microtransits such as little circuit buses or the scooters that you see all around everywhere. So the city of Fort Lauderdale right now we started out a pilot program of having the little circuit trams. You can see them over here at the Brightline station. They're just going all around the city. So we started a pilot program that just went from the Brightline station all the way about a mile to US 1, and it goes north to Sunrise Boulevard, and then also the Broward Boulevard. So it's basically a mile north, a mile south, a mile east, but not a mile west, unfortunately. We had great success. Hello? So we had great success with that. Hello? Can you turn it on and off? I'm sorry. So we had great success with that, and then the rest of the city, or different neighborhood communities in the city of Fort Lauderdale, demanded the circuit to expand. So working with the Broward County, we were able to get a transit grant to expand the circuit system, not just in the core downtown Fort Lauderdale, but we also have the circuit system going to the beach, to A1A, and then we also have the transit system going up north, cutting through some of our neighbors, Wilton Manors and Oakland Park, where unfortunately it doesn't stop in those cities, but it does go northern, because if you kind of know Fort Lauderdale is kind of like this area that has like a shark bite in the middle of it, so it takes out Wilton Manors and Oakland Park, and then Fort Lauderdale goes kind of like this. So we have our circuit system that goes basically to the major traffic generating points in Fort Lauderdale. Another thing that we're working with in our Northwest community that's seen a lot less development lately, to basically reduce their park requirement or exempt them. When a new development comes in there, we require them to provide a similar circuit, a tram, that goes around in their neighborhood. So we require them to go half a mile north, half a mile south, and half a mile east and west. And basically what this little circuit tram thing does is that it picks people up on the other side of the train tracks, brings them over, and then brings them to their site, and then takes them back home safely.
Can I ask
Yeah,
you,
go ahead.
How's that being funded?
Through the private development ones in the area that's not being seeing a lot of development, the private developer actually has to fund that. If at any point that service stops, we do revoke their CO and their business cannot run. And that's basically because we've exempted them 100% of parking. So that's their parking mitigation. As far as the circuit that goes throughout the rest of the city, it is a Broward County Transit grant that they've given to the city of Fort Lauderdale. We apply for it every year, and thankfully we are awarded it, and that pays for the other circuit trans.
And I think even Brightline provides some funding for to and from the Brightline stations, which again, that is in Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami-Dade. That's provided.
We had something similar in Aventura, and we're working to make sure that service continues as we move forward. But yeah.
Just on that transition, Euless, I mean, obviously a number of you all have seen Brightline. It's a private development to provide transit from now Orlando to Miami, and they're looking to develop from Orlando to Tampa. How's the interface been with DTPW in terms of collaboration, right? You talk about Aventura. I think that was a great success from a public-private partnership perspective. And now the Northeast Corridor discussion is kind of starting to percolate in terms of how do we develop that partnership on the FEC corridor. So what's happening there, and how is that partnership working?
I have to say publicly that the partnership is fantastic. And
Public side of the public-private partnership.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, but it is. I think we have a fantastic opportunity to really provide a fantastic service that will provide traffic relief on US 1 and connect true transit to a lot of our communities that are growing between downtown and Aventura. So we are excited about this because we have gotten this project environmentally cleared as of about a month and a half ago. We just met with FTA last week, performed what is called a risk workshop. We're kind of settling in on costs, and we're negotiating with Brightline and FEC, and we feel that we'll be able to get to a deal and move forward, and that's very exciting because really outside of the South Dade corridor, this is the next corridor that's up, and you have to understand the county's been working on this for the past 25 years, and so to be at the pretty much the finishing line here is exciting. So the partnership is good. The leadership at Brightline is very good. They're very accommodating, and I think we're all aligned to have a goal of making sure that we are providing not only transit service but the surrounding development. That's something that's again having that nexus between transit and housing as one that people want to continue to come to South Florida and engage in. The last thing I want to mention, that we even though I represent Miami-Dade County, transit and transportation is regional, okay? So when we talk about South Florida, really we're talking about Broward, West Palm, and Miami-Dade, and Monroe County. So we have to figure out a way to think about it in that mindset. And we talk about the Northeast Corridor. That's actually the Northeast Corridor is a southern section or segment of the Coastal Link. And the Coastal Link is to provide commuter rail service from downtown Miami all the way to West Palm. So we're even talking about this project differently and making sure that all the collective leadership within the respective counties are engaged with Brightline and FEC and make sure that we're looking at this as a regional solution, not just one that's just benefiting people here in Miami-Dade.
Very good. Yeah. Are you aware of any near-term developments in terms of Broward County's desire to either fund a bridge or a tunnel? Obviously, that's the critical link there, and obviously a politically charged discussion. But I think obviously Miami-Dade embarking on the first leg of the coastal link will force Broward to make a decision, but obviously a critical link in terms of getting the ridership needed to get funding and create that holistic view of South Florida.
Yeah, I'm staying away from the bridge
Yep,
crossing.
no problem. Got
But,
it. Okay.
but we are working with Broward. Broward does have a segment of commuter rail that they're going through their planning process now, and that's been a good partnership as well. And so it's been good to see kind of the collective unified approach to specifically this corridor, because we know we really need to advance it and do it now, because if we don't, you continue to wait. These projects are not getting any cheaper. And again, that continues to put strain on kind of identifying those proper revenue sources to deliver. So,
Very good. Appreciate it. I think that's interesting transition into Lexi. I mean, you guys are at Cape Canaveral are in an interesting location from a geographic perspective. You have the port, the space development that's ongoing, and really starting to feel, I think, the pressure from a congestion perspective. What are some of the things you're doing to try to mitigate that congestion and maybe take some of the lessons learned in more developed areas of Florida to not follow the same path?
Yeah, Brevard County in general, which is where we are, is definitely feeling the strain from port activity, from the space industry, from DoD. We have a lot of, your Northrop, your L3 Harris companies up there that draw a lot of new talent and new career opportunities. So some of the things we're doing, I mean, A1A kind of bisects our community. We have an east side and a west side on A1A. So we partner pretty heavily with FDOT on their projects. Since it's their road, we're just kind of not necessarily along for the ride, but lending a supporting hand when it comes to the projects for corridor improvements, intersection realignments, things like that to get people moving. We actually just recently passed, and we're a small community, so we're not necessarily always on the cutting edge of some of these policies for development, but we just passed our mixed use ordinance, so we're able to get some of that type of development in there to have also different varying levels of affordable housing, so that it's not just beachside communities with insane real estate prices, whether it's rent or buy. So mixed use is one thing that we've been looking into. Again, that connectivity, just to get people out of their cars, alleviate some of that congestion. Our area transit is Space Coast Area Transit, so it's county led, but partnering with them on some of the things that we can do to either provide last mile services or increase ridership to pull those cars off. So we're kind of seeing it from all sorts. Probably the number one thing that people attach to for development impact in our area, especially the public, has to do with stormwater and flooding and the lagoon, the health of the lagoon. And so when we can tie that back to transportation, and then the next step is obviously to housing, we can really kind of get people on board with these changes that need to happen. But we're definitely feeling the strain of population growth and density and some of the challenges that come with that.
Very good. Well, if we don't have anything else from the panelists, we can open it up for Q&A quickly. We've got probably about 10 minutes left. If anyone has any questions, we can open it up to the floor. I know Ken has mixed feelings about Q&A because they can go on forever, but we'll keep it short.
I find it
succinct.
hard to believe there's over 100 people in here with no questions. As you stimulate, we're not getting off the stage unless we get at least one. So you're stuck.
Our CEO says 3 questions, a minimum. So
Yeah,
Maurice is giving you guys a break with 1.
Yeah, well, I'll give you 3. One of the things to also think about, and I look at it from, we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about engagement, we're talking about innovation, we're talking about tech. As an FYI, I just came back from Europe and had a great session with a bank of how we can actually work on developing startups into Miami-Dade County, right? And if that goes well, I'm having a session that's going to be in March, those of you that may want to subscribe, but actually developing startups. I found out that there are more private equity and venture capitalist firms moving to the UK to nurture technology and development to actually work and being able to scale and bring business to the US. which means you're looking at more potential economic growth than you probably have not even thought about. So start thinking about this holistically. What does that level of impact do for you? So when we do this kickoff in March, and some of my team, they're here today, is if that goes well and have an opportunity to have this bank fund some of these companies and they're able to scale and it creates jobs in Dade County, what does that impact do on your infrastructure as it comes to transportation? Green spaces, all of these things, all these individual incremental touch points that we have not thought about before. And your charge is to think outside the box a little bit more. Is we have a fiduciary responsibility to deliver on several aspects. Mine is to move you safely through my airport. The directors ensure that you have a supportive, effective transportation artery to be able to move through, green space to be able to ride your bicycles for your families. But if you're adding more to that, how sustainable is that? And if that is the case, or that's not the case, what's missing and how do we put all of that together? So that's your challenge. But as you're challenging us and we're challenging you, where do we find that mix to continue to have this dialogue as we continue this? Now, questions.
Yeah, can I get a trip to Europe?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. We planned this, by the way. Just want to let you know that. I mean, like 2 minutes ago, we planned this.
Just to your point, you're no longer waiting. The challenges are too big, too much is going on, so you're no longer waiting for us to come bug you about things that you need to do. You're challenging us now. So I'd like to end these sessions with, what's your advice for all these people who maybe haven't engaged with you in the past to kind of get more engaged and kind of help bring solutions and be part of the solution? Any advice there?
You want to take it?
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I'll start. Well, first, participate, right? So, we have a variety of committees as a part of our, I would say, committee structure for around transportation mobility. But we also have a huge first ever effort going on right now, which is our countywide transportation master plan. And we are developing this as a part of a directive from Commissioner Regalado, who's on our Board of County Commissioners, but also served as the board chair for Tri-Rail, where she challenged us to make sure we develop a comprehensive transportation plan that looks at all modes, that we have to present, helps prioritize investment, that we update every single year. And so we're going to be releasing that and asking people to participate in public meetings and be engaged and be stakeholders that provide feedback. That document will be a living document, and it will help guide our investment moving forward, everything from transit to, again, other infrastructure that falls within the responsibility of DTPW. Analyzing bike and ped, transit trips, and even diving into freight and understanding how commerce moves on our roadways and the like, and how are we integrating that better into our transportation system. So I would encourage everybody, go to our website, take a look at that, and you'll see our master plan, and that's a great way to be engaged and hear directly from what we're trying to plan for, but also we need to hear from everybody to make sure we're not missing anything moving forward.
For the city of Fort Lauderdale, I would say follow us on social media, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We do a lot of planning, and unfortunately, maybe only 40% of what we plan actually gets implemented. And a lot of that is because we have these workshops or open houses or these community events. We go to the HOAs and whatnot, but a lot of people don't show up. So when we take these proposals to commission, the commission doesn't hear the support from the community, and so it doesn't get funded. So if you want to participate or you want to be part of the solution, follow us on social media, find out when we're having these open houses, be part of the workshops, and then support the commissioners or ask the commissioners to support our plans.
Very good. We'll go ahead and then one more.
Good morning. I heard some great topics this morning: resiliency, environment, technology. I'd like to hear first from Alexis and from Benjamin about what are you doing as coastal communities, both Fort Lauderdale and Cape Canaveral, as far as resiliency. A1A is a very important road throughout the state, and it's also affected by sea level rise. If you could tell us a little bit about that. And then also for Eloise and Maurice, I would love to hear about innovation. This morning I was coming in, And I saw for the first time autonomous vehicles with a Miami-Dade stamp on it. So I'd love to hear about that also. So I guess start with.
I wish we had enough time. I would love to chime in if it's up to you, Mr. Chair, if we can answer that. And the sea level rise, and I'd love to answer the autonomous piece. It's up to you.
All right, yeah, I say quickly on the resiliency side, and then we can go to autonomy.
So we have a number, speaking of plans and how much planning we do, we have a number of plans and assessments. We're in the middle of updating our vulnerability analysis due to the new state rules that came out, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. We have a resiliency action plan, which is driven by that VA. We have a series of strategies for mitigation and adaptation that we look at. Our threat for sea level rise actually comes from the lagoon. We're lower on our west side, and our dunes, where the beach is higher. So we tend to have backwash into our stormwater system. A1A is also closer. So we're working with FDOT on what they're doing to raise the roads in our area, looking at a lot of low impact development and green stormwater infrastructure, because putting water in pipes just isn't working anymore to keep the water off the road and from threatening people in their homes. We try to look at resilience and sustainability instead of a pillar in our community, a beam that goes across it so that it touches public works, it touches planning, finance, so that we're implementing it in a way that kind of always puts it in whatever bucket, it's not perfect, but whatever bucket we're working in, we always try to kind of incorporate it and weave it into what we're doing.
Very good.
From an autonomous vehicle perspective, 60 seconds or less, we're looking at some initiatives. As a matter of fact, to give you an idea, but it has to touch the entire ecosystem rather than just putting an autonomous vehicle, right? So one, we're looking at an autonomous lawnmower. While it sounds basic and simple, if I geofence it properly, 24 hours a day, it can cut the lawn and not have to worry about how do I assess dealing with the human capital portion, which means on a really hot day, they can work on other aspects. I can work on customer experience. I can do other things with that. But how can I leverage that across the board, right? So that's one. So how can I do that, leverage some technology for 5G and CBRS, which means I could do it indoor, outdoor. What else can I do from an autonomous vehicle perspective? Because don't forget, if you implement that, you don't have the infrastructure to support it, or latency, then you run the risk of causing problems. So have to build out that first. We're working on doing that. So with that, I can do other facets at all of my airports, all the GAs included. So now I get to introduce more technology that goes along with that as well. So that's one step, and then we're actually exploring other opportunities. So that's the impetus for it, but we are looking into it. We are working on it. You'll be seeing that shortly.
Euless?
Yeah, and you mentioned the autonomous vehicle that you saw. That's a part of our on-demand service called Metro Connect. So if hopefully everybody, before you leave, you can download this app. If you are within one of our 10 zones within Miami-Dade County, you can actually use and book a trip that's very similar to Uber and Lyft. As a part of the process for booking a trip, there's an option for you to select an autonomous vehicle. And so we are embedding that as a way to, one, start to get people more comfortable with that technology, and then figure out how we can start to build it to scale to have that as a true mobility option moving forward.
Very good. Well, thanks everyone for getting here early. We really appreciate it, and thanks for the questions. The panelists will be available for this morning if you have any additional questions. Appreciate it. But thanks, Ken, for putting on a great event, and looking forward to the rest of the day.